Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. My name's Deborah Garlick from Henpicked Menopause in the Workplace, and author of the book Menopause, The Change for the Better. And today is something a little different because we often talk about symptoms and managing symptoms and menopause and menstruation and menstrual health. But today we've got a special session which is about good bone health for life. So something that is pretty much one for us to think about around our long-term health and maybe even call it a long-term symptom. So I'm delighted to welcome Kat Bright, for the co-founder of the Health Boost, to talk us through this a little bit more. Good morning or good afternoon, Kat.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much. And you know that this is an area that I'm absolutely fascinated in because, you know, whether you have menopause symptoms or you don't, good bone health life is just something that we should all be thinking about all of the time. So I've got some questions to ask you before we get into this. And then we have my colleague, Sally, who is in the background answering all of the Q&A. So if you have any questions today, you know what to do. Put them in chat, and Sally will be popping on very shortly to get through as many of those questions as we can. So I'm afraid we might be asking you lots and lots. So this is going to feel like the John Craven's news round of bone health, Kat. But I think we should start right at the beginning and say, how does your bone health change over time?
Well, I mean, bone is living tissue, so actually it's constantly rebuilding itself. It's rebuilding itself and it's being broken down. So age of 30 is our peak bone strength, and then it deteriorates a little bit from there. Basically, it's a battle between the osteoblasts, which build our bones, and the osteoclasts, which kind of break down our bones. So as we get older, especially for women, with our hormonal changes comes bone change, because actually estrogen slows the activity of osteoclasts. So osteoclasts are the ones that break down. So estrogen is supportive because it stops it breaking down quite so much. But also progesterone has a place because that stimulates the osteoblasts, which are the cells that build that bone. So actually that importance of both estrogen and progesterone is really important as we get older, and that's why our bone changes and doesn't get quite so efficient and can deteriorate as we get older.
You're right, actually, because when many of us think of bone health, we think of the Halloween skeleton, don't we? Those sort of white bones and stuff. But actually, they're not like that at all, are they?
No, so we got hormones in there. They've got, made out of bones is made out of, minerals, proteins. It's it holds us together. Without bones, we'd be a massive jelly on the floor.
And you agree that once we're past menopause or post-menopause and our hormone levels drop so significantly, and they're at a different level, then it makes it even more important that we do consider our bone health in all that we do.
Absolutely. And I think it's an area that's not really spoken about until someone has broken a bone. And it might be that, at 50, your bones have already started to deteriorate. And actually, you might have mild osteopenia, but you haven't fallen over. So you don't know, you've never broken anything. So no one's ever checked you. But actually, as you get older and you might then fall. I had a client that just knocked her hand once and broke several bones, in her hand, because she didn't realize that actually she had severe osteoporosis, but she'd never fallen, so she didn't know. It's quite staggering when you think about it. 50% of women over the age of 50 are expected to break a bone, but only 20% of men. So 50% of us will go on and break a bone after the age of 50.
Well, you really surprised me there. If you saw me go, oh, optimum health for bones is 30. Yeah. That's a lot earlier than I thought it was going to be. I always assumed that this was a perimenopause thing, menopause thing, that That was when it was, but they've already been
They're
deteriorating.
already starting. So basically, the main time we're building our bone is as a teenager, and that you can get much stronger at the age of 30. But yeah, but if you think about it, our hormones are already, progesterone actually has already started to decrease, maybe like late 30s and stuff. So already we're not building that activity of that osteoblasts, the building of the bone has already slowed down slightly.
Right. Okay. So when you say good bone health for life, we're
We
talking much longer than
We
that,
need to
aren't we?
start, yeah, we need to start thinking about the nutrients for our bones and ensuring that we are doing lifestyle and diet that is good bone health for life. Yeah.
So you mentioned about the importance of this. I mean, not only would we not be able to stand up if we didn't have our bones, but is there more to it than that? Is it?
Yeah, because people think, oh, well, I'll just break a bone, it'll be okay, kind of thing. I'll just put myself, I'll get put in plaster and, I'll recover. And actually, but there is a statistic which I quite often give in bone talks, and I think it's quite frightening, but 20% of women die within 1 year of a hip fracture.
Wow. Okay, so it's much more than being able to stand and do all of those things. It's actually, it can have a mortal consequence.
Absolutely. And people don't think that it has. The risk is always about cardiovascular disease or dementia. They don't realize that actually osteoporosis is actually a serious, we call it the hidden disease for a reason. You often don't know your bones are fragile until you've already broken a bone. And you don't get a DEXA scan on the NHS until you've already broken a bone. In cases, and depends on different areas in the UK, some it'll be 3 bones and then you'll have a DEXA. Some it'll be 2 breaks and then you'll get a DEXA. But there are some areas that you'll get a DEXA after 1. But I personally believe that everyone over the age of 50 should actually go and have a private DEXA, see what their bones are done. I had a private DEXA at age of 47, and literally I've been lifting weights, so my nutrition was good. I thought, well, I'm not going to have bone issues. I have mild osteopenia. I had actually had mild osteopenia. So
Oh,
you
right to
don't
that.
know.
Because you're right. How do you know if you've got good bone health? Because you just called it the silent killer. How
Yeah,
do
you
I
don't
know?
know.
Sitting here, how do I know if I'm good or not so good or whatever? Because
You don't know, but you've got to think there are risk factors. So what's your family history like? So of course, if you've got a mother that's got osteoporosis or osteopenia and has been diagnosed, you probably need to be super aware, because actually, you need to be aware there's a family history. Blood tests are quite often, if I do kind of wellness checks for people, again, and I recommend people have them. And quite often I can spot that bone health might be an issue. And then I will say to them, look, I think we need to go off and have a DEXA scan. Let's see what your bones are doing. That can be really important. There are other warning signs. Are you a heavy drinker? Do you smoke? Do you drink lots of caffeine? Are you a vegetarian, actually? Because 33% of vegetarians are more likely to have osteoporosis or osteopenia.
so there was a lot of things there to unpack. I might not know. I might be sitting here with bad bone health and not know about it. I was a little bit alarmed when you just said until you have your first break, or in some parts of the country, 3 breaks before somebody thinks. Bearing in mind that statistic that you said earlier, around about 50% of us, is that right? After menopause,
Yeah,
will
yeah.
this sounds like it should be something that is more more prepared for it, more routinely checked as part of our
Yeah,
health.
it would be lovely if we did preventative healthcare in the UK. I don't think we have the capacity in the NHS for it. I think there are some countries that actually, at the age of 50, every woman goes off and has a DEXA scan so they know. I was doing a menopause talk once, and there was a lady from Switzerland, and she said, oh, I've had a DEXA scan. And, from part of her health check, she said, at the age of 50, that's what's expected. We go off and we have a DEXA scan to see what our bones are like.
Wow. So that sounds like that is absolutely perfect. And just to recap, then you said it's not available on the NHS unless you've had these things. Can you get these things? Can you get a DEXA scan privately?
Yeah, you can. Mine was about £125. So they're not break the bank. You know, there is initial cost to it, but you then know, you know, whether you've got osteopenia or osteoporosis. And actually, my GP was once I'd said to her that I had a DEXA scan and that I did have mild osteopenia, she wanted to see a copy of the DEXA scan to put on my records. So they are very open to then, and presume then I can then get further DEXA scans if needed on the NHS.
So do you have to Google it? DEXA scans in your area?
Probably, yes. I have found somewhere in London that did it.
Yeah. Okay. And one of the things that when you said this sort of made me think, interesting. You had mild osteopenia
Yeah. Yeah.
and you sorted it out. So I'm going to have to ask, what did you do to sort it out?
I looked at, you know, what I was doing and making sure I was having all the nutrients needed for strong bones, really. So I think the first thing is 50% of bone is protein. So is everyone eating enough protein? Most food diaries I see, probably not. So again, make sure you're having enough protein. Ensure you're actually consuming enough calcium. So the government guidelines for calcium is you need about 800 milligrams of calcium. If you've been diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis, then you actually need 1,200 milligrams of calcium a day. So go and work out how much calcium you are actually having. But bones are so much more than just calcium. We need vitamin D. Vitamin D obviously absorbed through the sun. Do you get enough? I know that I actually don't absorb vitamin D through the sun very well. So I've had genetic testing done and I don't get any. I have vitamin D receptors are null and void. I don't absorb any vitamin D from the sun. So vitamin D increases our ability to absorb calcium. So really important that we take vitamin D. Magnesium is really important. So half the population are deficient in magnesium. But magnesium is needed to convert that vitamin D to its active form. So actually magnesium is really important. So things like nuts, seeds, dark green leafy vegetables, beans and lentils, really important for our bone health as well. And then vitamin K is also really important for bones. So vitamin K is, it works in harmony with vitamin D and it stimulates the osteoblasts, which is a bone building, and it inhibits the osteoclasts. So it stops those osteoclasts breaking down. The importance of vitamin K is also it directs that calcium from our arteries to our bones. So we want that calcium in our bones. We don't want that calcium hanging around calcifying our soft tissue. So we need that vitamin K. Vitamin K comes in two forms. K1, which is found in green leafy vegetables. Most people don't eat enough green leafy vegetables. You also can get vitamin K from things like fermented milk products, kefir, natto, also some cheeses. I think there's about 3 cheeses I've found: Gouda, Jarlsberg and Emmentaler all contain that. So again, you can buy those cheeses sliced. So I always recommend people have a slice of, you know, one of those cheeses. Make sure you're getting a bit of vitamin K there as well. So that's kind of like your main nutrients to strengthen your bones, but you also need zinc, you need boron, you need vitamin C. You know, it's much, much more complicated than just calcium or vitamin D.
Okay, so if you like the shopping list there,
Yep.
make sure you've got these, is you were saying about eating enough protein,
Yep.
magnesium,
Yep.
vitamin D, which to be fair, it's coming up for summer here, and how many of us are getting vitamin D through the sun anyway? You mentioned calcium.
Yeah. Yeah. So calcium, 1,200 milligrams of calcium from food.
And vitamin K.
Vitamin K. So
So
quite
that's
often
good.
D supplements will contain vitamin K now. So a good quality vitamin D supplement will contain vitamin K. You don't need very much vitamin K, but you just need enough. So there are the main nutrients, but it can be hard getting them all in your diet. So it's about a variety of nutrients needed. And sometimes I think, it can help working with a nutritionist to make sure you're getting all the nutrients needed sometimes to ensure that that's happening. That then helps your bones be strong, but you also need your bones to be flexible. And that's where collagen plays a really big role in bone health. So that gives them, that's like the nutrients are your structure, but you need flexibility with your bones because you need them to absorb a bit of impact. So that's where collagen plays a really big role. Collagen's a little bit like a lock and key system in your body. You need the right key to unlock the right receptors for collagen. So actually taking a marine collagen, for instance, that's not going to get to your bones. That's basically for your skin. So you actually need a unique type of collagen. And there is actually only one type of collagen that I found on the market, which is particularly done the studies for. It's called Fortibone. So that's the type of collagen. And it's only one product in the UK, this Fortibone found, and it's in a product that's called Bone Balance. And that is exactly for the bones. So it's been formulated, it's food standard. So it actually it's not contraindicated with any medication at all, which I think is really useful. I take a big scoop of this Bone Balance collagen every day without fail.
And when you say that big scoop, because I've got the list of my nutrients there, and I know you were saying it's a real balanced diet, but some of us do need to rely on supplements.
Yeah.
Vegetarians there. The Fortibone, is that vegetarian or vegan?
It's not vegetarian or vegan. No,
No.
because you need it's kind of cow, it's bovine collagen. You need that to get into the bones.
Okay. So one of the things that you said earlier is people that are vegetarian and presume vegan as well may be at higher risk of osteoporosis. Is there anything in particular for those people?
I have got a couple of vegetarian clients and they actually decide to take the collagen because it's not, yes, it comes from animals, but it doesn't taste animal. And they feel that their bone health actually is important enough that they will overcome that and take this collagen because it's so important for them, for their bones. Because vegetarians, it's not as, you can be a healthy vegetarian. I'm not saying that all vegetarians are going to have osteoporosis, but you are at an increased risk, probably because you don't necessarily get enough things like iron, protein, zinc. You can, but you're not all. It depends on where you're getting your protein sources from with a vegetarian diet.
Okay, so that is one solution as to, if you're talking about our checklist, you mentioned nutrition. The one thing I know from the NICE guidelines is it does say that HRT is very good for bones.
Yeah, so that goes back to the beginning of the conversation with that battle between the osteoblasts and the osteoclasts. So obviously the estrogen slows down that activity of the osteoclasts, which would break the bone down, and the progesterone helps stimulate those osteoblasts. So again, HRT is, absolutely, really important, essential probably.
It's really, really important, essential, and I'm sure in the Q&A we'll come back to not everybody wants to take it or can take it.
And not everyone, as I say, not everyone can take it, unfortunately. So they probably need to be even more careful of what they're eating. But again, I have found HRT isn't the only thing that should be done for bones. It didn't work. Just HRT for me didn't increase my bone health. I had to do everything else, including lifestyle, including actually massively increase my weight training and my impact training to help build my bones. And the combination, so HRT alone did not build my bones. I had to do other things, and that lifestyle and diet, then I actually changed my osteopenia to normal bone health.
to normal. And so when you say about weight training, and I know we've got our last lunch and learn was about movement, and again it came down to the optimal exercise that you can do. How does exercise build bones then? Does that come back to the osteoclasts?
Yeah, so again, it's all about, because bone is a living tissue, you can influence it, but you need to think about the type of training you're doing. So you want that impact. So anything with impact it stimulates that bone to build. So because you're breaking it down a little bit, it will stimulate those osteoblasts to build the bone. So things like skipping are really good because it's the impact. Boxing apparently is really good. You know, walking, especially if you're doing something like Nordic walking, where you've got your poles and so anything that has that kind of impact. Running can be good, but not everyone can do running, especially if they've got osteoporosis. And then you want to do some kind of weight training that actually loads your bones. So there's a couple of studies that have found that, you know, resistance work really is much better than cardio for building bones, but you have to load that bone. So that means a big barbell. That doesn't mean a tiny little 1 pound, you know, weight. You actually need a proper, apparently the only exercise that can build your spine up is squats with a barbell or a deadlift. Heavy, proper weightlifting.
Got the deadlift. I'm all right there. I was starting to think, oh no, I'm going to have to rethink my exercise because many of us, when you get to my age, I'm always thinking, consider my knees in all of this.
Again, there's loads of exercises. And again, that's why working with a personal trainer that has an understanding perhaps of bone health can give you some starting points and some starting exercise to make sure you're not injuring yourself. Because some people, if you've got a very serious, you know, if your osteoporosis is really bad, then actually you cannot put a barbell on your back, because actually that will probably cause a break. So you do have to know your limits a little bit.
Yes, you do. And one of the things that I was thinking about just then is how long did it take you to get from osteopenia to normal again?
Well, I'm now what 51. So it took me, I think the first thing I thought just going on HRT was going to build my bones. And I was like, oh, I went on HRT, brilliant, thought excellent, had my second DEXA scan about 2 years later, and it was exactly the same. So it hadn't got worse, but it didn't get better. So then I thought, right, I need to, you know, really try a little bit harder now. And that's when I introduced the bone balance collagen. I made sure I was getting enough, making sure my vitamin D was optimal. I made sure that I massively increased my protein. I started taking some supplements, and the weight training I was doing several times a week, and I doubled it. And I now do weight training 4 times a week.
Wow. Okay, that's wonderful. And I can see that we're getting a lot of questions here. So, Sally?
Yes, as always on these sessions, and I always say this, thank you so much. Everyone's been sharing their thoughts, reassuring each other, all sorts of things. So just really appreciate. So I'm going to try and get through as many things as we possibly can do in the time that we've got. So on the vitamins and the kind of the minerals and those kind of things, it was how much of things. I know you talked about how much calcium, but how much of other things like vitamin D and things like that, the recommended dosages, how much protein, all of those kind of things, so people getting a bit of guidance on that.
Yeah, it's really difficult. So vitamin D, I always get people to test. So again, we don't know whether someone can genetically absorb vitamin D from the sun. So actually vitamin D, I would get a blood test done and see what your level is. And then you need to supplement accordingly. You know, you need to make sure your vitamin D is up there. So again, that is really difficult. Magnesium, because most people are deficient in magnesium, I think actually a magnesium supplement is probably okay for most people. There will be people on some medications that cannot take magnesium. So again, working with a health provider that can advise you on that. And again, vitamin K, again, is really tricky, because if you're on something like warfarin, it can be very dangerous to be on vitamin K. So vitamin K can thin that blood. So again, if anyone's on medication, they have to be really careful. So that's why I suggested for vitamin K, actually getting it from food. So your little bit of, Jarlsberg cheese, a little bit of Emmental, a little bit of Gouda can actually help just top up your vitamin K, or vitamin K is found also in vitamin D supplements.
Fantastic. And just on the magnesium, someone said that magnesium supplements seem to really upset their stomach. Is there a particular best, because there's lots of kinds of magnesium?
Yeah, there is. So things like so magnesium citrate will probably upset someone's stomach. So I quite often use magnesium if someone's constipated to help, sort of help their bowel movements. But actually, you want probably a magnesium glycinate to avoid that stomach upset.
Yeah. Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. And people have asked questions around osteopenia and penia and osteoporosis, what the difference is, and the kind of DEXA scan scores as to what's mild, what's severe, just to give a bit of an understanding for people.
Yeah, so you'll get so with your DEXA score, you get a minus T score, or you get a T score. You've got osteopenia is a mild, and then osteoporosis is more severe. So depending on your T-score, you'll be diagnosed with either osteopenia or you'll be diagnosed with osteoporosis, depending on the severity of your T-score.
Okay. People have talked about exercise. Obviously, you talked about how important that is. People have asked how long and how much. Are there any particular recommendations of things that people should be trying to fit in?
It kind of really, again, depends on the person, depends on your bone health and what you're doing. But, we need to be doing some kind of movement every day, really, whether it's a walk, whether it's some kind of, small exercise class or in the gym. I think we should be active.
Yeah. Okay. Some people have talked about some of the treatment that they've had, and one of them is alendronic acid.
Yeah, alendronic.
I guess maybe we could just explain to people what that is. And someone's asked about what alternatives there are.
So there are the medications on the NHS are bisphosphonates, which is alendronic acid is part of. There's also an injection called Denosab. There are various things. Now, what they do is they sort of stop the osteoclasts from breaking down, but they're not. What you're doing is they're building it up. No, they're not building really. They're just stopping the activity to break it down. But quite often I find that people the side effects aren't pleasant, unfortunately. And what they can do is they make the bone, the T-score better on your DEXA, but actually the bone can be more brittle. So it's not the magic bullet again. I think we need more investigation needed for importance of bone health. I think it's an area that is just not enough medications that's good enough at the moment. And I'd love to see a better medication out there. I find a lot of people with long-term use of alendronic acid actually have something called jaw necrosis, where they start to lose their teeth. So again, it's really important that you go to your dentist regularly if you are on alendronic acid, and that they've taken bone x-rays of your jaw so that they can evaluate and see whether you've got any deterioration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think someone had said that they said they'd had to stop it because they were having dental treatment. So I think that's a really, really great piece of advice for people to be aware of.
Yeah, I always say to people, before you go on the alendronic acid, please go and see your dentist and have an x-ray, just so that they can completely, monitor the process. And you might need more regular x-rays than it would be normally suggested.
Yeah, and we've had quite a few questions around people with breast cancer where maybe they've not been able to take HRT, or someone's also asked whether collagen is okay for someone to take if they've had an estrogen receptor positive breast cancer. So again, just any advice that we can give people.
Everyone is really different with breast cancer, but unfortunately a lot of people especially the hormone driven breast cancer will not be able to take HRT. So that one avenue is taken away from them. I obviously can't go into specific medication. It can be really challenging. You really need to work with someone to see what you can and can't take. But you know, collagen is absolutely fine. So collagen, especially this bone balance collagen, it's food standard. So it's been authorized for people, whatever medication you're on. So yeah, absolutely with the collagen. But yeah, they have to be careful if they've got that.
Yeah.
But again, that makes it even more important to make sure you're having those nutrients from food if you've got breast cancer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the that overall advice that, especially if someone's got that complex medical history, making sure they're talking to someone qualified to understand what might be right for them, because we're all so different. And I think that's something that's just really important to take away for people, that if they've got worries or concerns, that they do talk to somebody qualified, their healthcare practitioner, whether that's their GP or whoever that may be, to make sure they're getting the advice on what's really right for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And their oncologist will be able to say whether they can take a particular supplement or anything.
Fantastic.
I've got to say, thank you both very, very much. And the chat is absolutely full, and it is lovely the way people are helping each other. I think there was a lot of people Googling bone balance, Kat, because I was seeing a lot of links in the chat, and I found it as well. If you wondered what I was doing in the background there, I found it too. So thank you very much for sharing that, those people that did. But an awful lot more in this than I thought. I thought you were going to tell me to eat broccoli or something.
I mean, broccoli does contain calcium, so you'd be great if you could put a sprinkle of sesame seeds on there, which also includes calcium. Great. But I mean, we haven't even touched on actually the importance of gut microbiome and your gut bacteria for bone health, which is also important.
Well, that's next time for that one then, Kat. And thank you very much, Kat Bright, and for Sally Leach. Lots of top tips there, and of course we'll write those up so anybody can access them on Henpicked Menopause Hub as well, if like me there was so much in there that you didn't manage to finish your shopping list. I have got Jarlsberg on mine. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to next time. Thank you very much both.
Thank you.